Welcome back to more Kirby Air Ride. Last time we went over Top Ride, so this time all that's left is City Trial. On the surface, this mode is relatively straightforward. There's no course selection, and only one vehicle, the Compact Star. In practice, City Trial is surprisingly robust. It's divided into two sections, the first of which takes place in this open city. By default, you have 5 minutes to go around, trying to collect as many upgrades for your air ride machine as possible, using these upgrade patches. You aren't limited to the Compact Star though. You can either have it get destroyed by another Kirby, or you can manually dismount by holding A, L, or R along with down on the control stick. You can also freely run around and even float a bit, but like in Kirby 64, it is capped at a certain amount of jumps. So for example, we have a Warp Star here, which is arguably better than the Compact Star, so we switched over to this, and now we'll start upgrading this machine instead. In some cases, you will lose some upgrades when switching vehicles, so be aware of that. You might have to recollect a couple of the upgrade patches. Patches can be found at random and in the blue boxes. The blue boxes also can contain healing items as well, and we do have a health meter, so you want to be aware of that, especially if you found a machine that you like and you don't want it to get destroyed by one of the other Kirbys. We also have green boxes that have temporary upgrades like attack and defense boosting items, along with temporary attack items like cannons and throwable Gordos. Finally, we have the red boxes that have copyability panels, along with parts of the legendary air ride machines, the Hydra and the Dragoon. These aren't always collectible in every round of City Trial, but if you can find them, these are very powerful air ride machines and will definitely give you a leg up against your opponents in the next round after the city portion. We are going to try to collect the legendary air ride parts, but I do want to show off a lot of the other surrounding areas as well. For example, we have these rail stations that quickly allow you to reach other parts of the city relatively easily. We also have random events as well. For example, the rail stations can catch on fire, like this. That was very unfortunate timing, but luckily there is a Compact Star over here, so we will be able to find another vehicle right away. So that is one downside of this mode, is there's an element of randomness that you have to be aware of, and that just happened to be very unfortunate timing. Over here we also have a volcano area. We can also actually head inside the volcano and actually use this to get launched to a higher up point. That'll actually give us a very good vantage point. By the way, there are also great upgrade patches that will actually level down your stats, so be aware of that as well when trying to actually collect items. For example, like here, it would have been very easy to accidentally run into the gray patch when trying to break through these little walls here, like that. One of these should have a passageway inside the volcano, and then we'll see what we can find in there. In general, the Compact Star is not the best vehicle, but it's what we have, so we'll make the most of it for now. But again, we can find healing items as well. But yeah, the volcano can launch us up here, which will give us a vantage point for the rest of this. We have this little elevated section over here with these little ramps that will actually give us a boost if we fly off of them like so. Over here, we also have that star. You can actually break that and it will actually drop a ton of upgrade patches. We also have a forest area that we'll explore momentarily. I'm pretty sure we won't end up finding the legendary air ride parts in this particular round because we haven't really seen any red boxes entirely, but in general, they are divided into 3 parts and you have to collect all 3 in order to actually assemble the full machine. But we have this little forest area. We even have wispy woods over here as well that you can actually run into to attack. But we also have these little patches here that you can actually tap A to break through and fall to a little underground section as well. There is an underground garage as well. This isn't as important in the main part of City Trial, but in the free run mode that we'll be checking out later on, there's a lot more to see down here. But again, we haven't really had the best luck with finding the legendary air ride machine parts, unfortunately, but again, if you can find them, they are very beneficial for the other challenges. But again, even when you find the red boxes, there's no guarantee that you can even collect the parts within a particular round. In some cases, you can actually find both, but in other cases, you might only be able to find one or neither of the air ride machines. So again, there's an element of randomness with various events, the potential of finding legendary arid machines. Your starting location can also vary per round, and as a result, this mode tends to be very replayable and chaotic. And in general, it's part of the reason why this game is so fondly remembered, because a lot of people spent a lot of time on this mode, myself included. I played this mode a ton, and that is very unfortunate timing, losing our machine right at the end of the countdown. At the end of the city portion, you'll have a random stadium event where you use your upgraded machine to try to complete a challenge. The Destruction Derby mode involves having to fight the other Kirbys and trying to get the most KOs. This is Destruction Derby 5, but there are 4 more stages that we'll be checking out later on. In general, this mode tends to be very interesting. This particular stage is fun because this one actually also has upgrade patches. Between each round, you can't actually see your stats as well, but you can unlock the ability to actually see your stats from the pause menu, but that normally is not accessible at the start when you're playing this mode. In general, Destruction Derby 5 tends to be kind of frustrating because there aren't as many copy abilities because of the patches that appear. Basically, these take the spots of certain copy abilities and other attack items, so it can actually be fairly difficult to get items to deal damage. We also are stuck with the Compact Star and lost a ton of patches at the very last moment, so we are not in good shape for this mode. To tell the truth, I wasn't expecting to win the Destruction Derby modes anyway, because I'm really bad at the combat of this game, but again, we are especially at a disadvantage because of just the bad timing of everything. But again, that's kind of the fun part of City Trial, is the sort of unpredictable nature of it, basically having to kind of move quickly and kind of think on your feet a lot with trying to make the most of what you're given at the end of a round. So that was a quick look at the city portion of City Trial, so next up, let's go over the game settings. We can actually set the time between 3 and 7 minutes. Personally, I prefer 7 minutes because 5 really isn't that much time. Like before, you can also adjust the game tempo, and you can even select specific stadium events to occur at the end of the city portion. You can also turn events on or off, though I do wish there was a frequency toggle rather than just an on or off setting. Next up, let's actually go over all of the remaining stadium events. First up is Drag Race 1. For this, let's actually demonstrate the Swerve Star over here. The drag race modes obviously are fairly straightforward races to the finish. I wanted to demonstrate the remaining air ride machines as well, and frankly the Swerve Star is really well suited to Drag Race 1, given that this is a very straight course, and we can't actually turn unless we're actually holding down one of the buttons. So again, the Swerve Star is actually very fast, but kind of unwieldy if you're not used to actually turning this way. Next, we have Drag Race 2. For this one, I think we'll actually try out the Turbo Star. The Turbo Star is also very fast, but kind of like the Swerve Star, though to a lesser extent, is a little bit unwieldy. It tends to slide around a bit, especially when turning, using a drift. It's very easy to accidentally overshoot a turn using this, but again, on straightaways like this, it's not that bad. In terms of copy abilities, the only time you can actually get copy abilities is through the roulettes, and not through any other means. Next, we have Drag Race 3. For this one, I think we'll try out the Rocket Star. The Rocket Star is fairly unique because it's actually really fast, but it gradually loses speed over time. Basically, you have to charge it up and get a huge boost, and then try to ride off of that huge boost for the rest of a race. Obviously, in cases like this, it's not great if you can't actually boost efficiently enough. You can also charge it up again, but obviously you have to stop, and it obviously wastes time. And our final drag race is Drag Race 4, and for this one, we'll be using the Rex Wheelie. The Rex Wheelie has similar properties to the other bikes, where you basically always touch the ground, so you'll automatically interact with various panels on the ground, but the one downside of the Rex Wheelie in particular is it tends to be a little bit stiff to control. But again, it's fairly competent in a mode like this, where we don't have to worry about steering. Moving on, we have Air Glider. Obviously, the Wing Star over here will be a good choice. As the name implies, the goal in this mode is to glide as far as possible. You do have some boosts along the ground like so, but basically we want to gain as much speed as possible to launch off and try to go as far as we can. Obviously the Dragoon, if you can get the legendary air ride machines, is very good for this, but the Wing Star is not too shabby either. Next, we have Target Flight, and we'll be sticking with the Wings Star for this. We have 2 rounds to try to score as many points as possible by ramming the air ride machine into one of the panels at the end. Obviously the 100 panel is the best, but it can be a little bit unwieldy because it's constantly closing. And moving on to round 2, basically we have to kind of time this. You might want to kind of swerve in the air a little bit if the panel looks like it's about to close, but we'll try to go for the 100 for variety. Moving on, we have High Jump. For this one, we'll be using the Wheelie Scooter. Once again, we have 2 rounds to try to jump as high as possible, and this is a great vehicle for this particular mode. And we'll see how round 2 goes really quickly. Next, we have Kirby Melee 1. For this one, I think we'll try out the Bulk Star. In this mode, the goal is to defeat as many enemies as possible. Obviously, with more opponents, you have to have the highest score out of all the Kirbys, but basically my advice would be to try to get a copy ability you're familiar with and comfortable with, and try to basically go to town on all the other standard enemies around the area. The Bulk Star is unique because you basically have to rev it up, otherwise it'll basically move very slowly or not at all, so it tends to be not the best vehicle in some cases, but obviously if you can get used to timing when you want to charge up, it is very fast, but again, personally it's never been one of my favorites because of how unwieldy it is. For the Kirby Melee stages, there is another variant. To unlock the other variant, I think you have to score about 75 points in round 1 in order to actually unlock Kirby Melee 2. So again, some of them are randomly unlocked through the city trial mode, others you have to meet certain requirements to unlock other stadium events. And next we have Kirby Melee 2, and I think for this mode we'll actually try out the Slick Star. As you might have guessed, the Slick Star is very loose in how it controls. You'll definitely slide around a lot, making it a little bit unwieldy, but again, it is fairly fast, so a lot of the air ride machines do have pros and cons to kind of balance out. Kirby Melee 2 is a much more open stage, so it can be a little bit annoying. For the checklist, for example, the score requirement is only about 40 if I'm not mistaken. We also have these little purple panels here that'll send us up to the higher ledges, where we can also find more enemies if we tap A over them. In some cases, you can actually find Mike, and obviously that's one of the best copy abilities for this because you'll defeat a ton of enemies in the vicinity at once, and that would be my recommendation for the checklist, because otherwise it's actually very hard to find enough enemies in time. Also, I feel like the Slick Star and the Swerve Star, for example, aren't as good at gliding compared to some of the others, so again, a lot of them do have drawbacks to having higher speed, like worse control.